I paid him to say that. He never has been in service. He don't even know what I mean. I think Melanie's chicken shit to invite me up here and then cop out and say she's dead. I'm glad to be here. A lot of these people know me. They're not here because they like me. They're here to keep me honest. I'm really glad that I get to share with those of you who don't know me. I used to speak quite a bit, and then they found out about me and quit asking me, so it didn't used to make me nervous. Now it does. I feel like I'm in this packed auditorium, and we all know it's just because we're in this little closet, and there's really not that many of us. I feel almost overwhelmed. I'll try to. I don't like drunkalogs. For one thing, mine's hearsay. You know, could have told me I did it. And a guy came up here from California once, moved up here, and started hanging around. He said the main difference he saw between Utah AA and California AA, as he had known it, was down there they tell what it was like, what happened, and what it's like now. And in Utah we tell what it was like, and what it was like. And I paid attention to that because we do that a lot. I guess I was dysfunctional. My family was dysfunctional. You know, I don't know what that is. I hear children of multi-billionaires who, you know, oh yeah, I'm dysfunctional, and I think, shit, go to bed hungry, that's dysfunctional. But when I was 4, my parents divorced. My mother disappeared. They were both drunk. And my dad couldn't take care of us, so he put us in a Catholic orphanage in Colorado. And I still got a problem with Catholics and that religion. And here I am in a church. We have a lot of AA meetings in church. I don't have any trouble with with what their goal is. It's just a problem for me. When I got put there, I'd never seen a nun. Nuns became my mother, my father, my teacher, my everything. And I'd never even seen a nun, you know, and didn't know what one was. I was 4 years old, and what they are is these great big women, and they wear these great big long black robes that go clear to the ground, cover everything but their hands and their face. And they don't have no lips. They got a blue line. And they don't have hands, they have rulers. They're mean. And that was who was going to be taking care of me for the next several years. And they did, and you know, I guess looking back, there was some good in that. I never went to bed hungry in that orphanage, and always had some clothes, but it just brainwashed my ass. You know, I grew up so full of guilt and fear and stuff that you can't believe it. And when the World War ended, my oldest brother took me to live with him in Colorado, and he was a drunk. So all I knew about growing up was drunks and nuns. That ain't much of a... I think that's dysfunctional. Lived with him and let him beat the shit out of me for a couple of years, and then my mother surfaced in Utah, and we came over here to live with her and this guy she'd married. He was a drunk, and she was still a drunk. But the difference was, by then I was getting into my teen years, and all they really wanted me to do was stay out of their way. And I got running with some guys in Salt Lake. There were no fences like in the orphanage, and no big mean brother. And I got running with some guys in Salt Lake, and they taught me a lot of stuff I needed to know. And they introduced me to alcohol. And I'd never learned how to talk to girls. And I was getting to that point to where girls really looked good to me. I just didn't really know what you did with them, because in the orphanage we were separated. But I didn't care then, because, you know, that was that age where girls don't look so good. But whiskey. Well, the first thing I ever drank was sloe gin. God, I remember that, because it's real sweet, you know. You can drink a mess of it, and it don't make you make faces or nothing. It tastes like fruit juice. And you don't realize it's kicking your ass until it's been kicked. But I wasn't afraid of girls. And I was tough. And good looking. And slick. And rich. You know, all the things I really wasn't, that stuff made me. And I'd go into blackouts, but I didn't know at the time what a blackout was. The next day, these guys would tell me all the shit I had done. So I just thought all of us who drank forgot what we did, and the non-drinkers didn't forget. But the difference was I drank alcoholically from the start, and they didn't. They could remember it. But I got in some trouble. And on my 17th birthday, a judge told me to go in the Marine Corps. And that's too young to be going in the Marine Corps. But I went. And I was a slick, tough little bastard off the streets. Now they kill you and all that on State Street, but in our day, we just had fights, you know. When you got a bloody nose, you quit fighting. It hurt. You know. But I thought I was pretty bad. And boy, I hit boot camp in San Diego and met my DI, drill instructor. Boy, them bastards are mean. They made them nuns look like nice people. About 10 minutes, I knew I was not mean. You know? And in half an hour, I was bald-headed. They shave every bit of your hair off, not a crew cut, bald. And they take your clothes and give you these great big green clothes, and you'll grow into them. But you don't know it then. And boy, you just don't look, it's hard to look bad when you're bald-headed and your clothes are too big, you know. Some asshole calling you names and screaming in your face and making you do push-ups. And I thought, man, because my choice between going in the Marine Corps, at the time they had an industrial school in Ogden, it's detention center, now they called it the industrial center then. And he did give me a choice, and I thought the Marine Corps would be glamorous and wonderful, you know. That's why I went, shit, I should have gone to Ogden. But after 4 months, you get out of boot camp. And once you're out of boot camp, the Marine Corps is pretty good if you're an alcoholic, because you can get in a lot of trouble in the service. But in the Marine Corps, you don't get in trouble if it's alcohol related. I guess maybe if you killed somebody or something, but I never did that. I just forget to come back. When it was Monday, I'd think it was still Saturday or something, you know. All they do. But that was, I was in the Marine Corps 6 years. I wound up a staff sergeant. And so I did good things in the Marine Corps, but I did so many bad things, but I never did one thing bad that wasn't alcohol related. And they excused it. And I got out with an honorable discharge, and I came to Utah and remarried my wife. I had married her because she was the one that wouldn't give me none, and so I figured that's the one I had to marry. But when I got to Japan, where I divorced her, there was a lot of them over there I wanted to marry. It's sideways. Nah, that's another story. My wife, Leo. But anyhow, I came back and looked her up and married her again, and we started having babies and doing geographicals. I moved to Oregon and Las Vegas and back to Utah. I just running from Leo, you know. I didn't know it then. I know it now. Well, things are kind of bad here in Utah. We'll go to Oregon. It'll be great. You know, where I get to Oregon there, I was in the mirror. But just doing geographics and drinking and changing jobs. I made a lot of money as a drunk. I became a realtor in Utah. I worked for Safeway. I had about 48 careers, you know, what alcoholic don't, you know, but real estate was the one I did the best in. I made a lot of money, but in 1970s in Utah, to make money in real estate, all you had to do was get out of bed for an hour or two. You know, they came to you, and I made a lot of money, and so I excused alcoholism by saying, look how well we do. You know, I've got a big house on the east side of Salt Lake, a couple of cars every year, new cars, kids wearing all the finest clothes and all that. But I was really dysfunctional. I'd go to work and come home in 2 weeks, or a week, or whenever I got done, you know. That's not normal behavior. And all I would do to excuse that when my wife started bitching was say, you had plenty of money in the bank, what's your problem? You know, I just thought that was my job. And I lived that way for a long time. And we tried different things. Finally, some people started telling her I was an alcoholic. And they're jealous, you know, and I'd do this shit she'd want me to do because it would shut her up for a while. We went to a Utah alcoholism clinic for a couple of years, and I never did stop drinking. Went and paid shrinks, $85 an hour, you know, and then lie to them. Did a lot of different stuff. And a couple of guys I met there took me to the Alano Club one day in Salt Lake. I got to tell you, it was my first AA meeting, and it's important that I tell you this. Also, if I say some things during the meeting that you don't like, before it's over, you'll know who I am today. I went there because it would get her off my ass. I didn't want to get sober. I knew AA was the dregs of society, but I knew that it'd get her off my ass. And so I went with these two guys that I'd known quite a while. And I sat in between them at the Alano Club. It's important you hear that, because I was very homophobic. I still may be. I don't know what it means, but first thing they did was like tonight. They read and all that God all the way through it. And I thought, it ain't working for me. Because, you know, Catholic Church, ta-da, nuns, and guilt and fear. And then some of them got up and lied. You know, I've been sober 2 years to tell this shit. I've been sober 18 months to tell this shit. I've been sober 3 months. And I thought, well, maybe you gotta say shit like that so they'll feed him downstairs after the meeting, you know. And I really thought that. At the end of that meeting, this is the part that killed me. They stood up and held hands. Now, I got Marine Corps tattoos. I got one there that says Mom that I put on there. That takes a man. And men don't hold hands with men. And I had a guy on either side of me. And they grabbed a hold of my hands and they all prayed. And I thought, these ignorant bastards have taken me to a bunch of Jesus freak queers. And I meant that just, I was pissed. I went out the door. They followed me out. What'd you think? I said, you ignorant bastards. I don't care if you're gay or queer or whatever. We call them queers then. They keep changing. I can't stay up. They went from queers to homosexuals and now they're gays. And I do try to stay up. And most of them ain't very gay that I know. And we got a lot of them in AA. They're all pissed off about something. But I just says, you know, you guys want to go that way, that's fine, but I'm not. And I ain't coming back. And they explain, oh, that's just their ritual. We're not gay. You can get in between women or don't hold hands. It's all right. So I went back every Sunday because every Sunday she liked me. Monday she didn't because I drink some more. And I did that for a long time. In and out of AA. But if you keep going, you're going to hear something. I don't know if any of you are new or not. You didn't ask for new kind. You fucked up. You didn't ask. I'm in a Catholic church. You screwed up. Sorry, Father. If you're new, I don't care if you buy this shit or not. Just keep coming back and you'll hear something. Something will ring your bell. And I kept going back and I didn't want to be sober. I made money. I took care of my family. and I was happier when I was drinking. I had a knot in my gut most of the time when I was sober, pissed off wife all the time, and life, I just liked it better when I was drunk. And I'd get put in jail, get them DUIs, and I never thought anything about, well, I might have killed somebody or anything. All I thought was the ignorant goddamn cops. They're out to get me. That's all I could think about. Then I'd make deals with God. Well, get me out of here in the morning and I won't get drunk no more. Well, as soon as I got out, I'd go over to Junior's and get drunk, And I did that over and over and over. I don't know how many of you have ever woke up in a drunk tank and didn't know what you did to get there. That's scary. That's scary. There's usually 6 or 7 Indians in there trying to undress you, and about 5 of them wanted your clothes, and that 6th son of a bitch was scary. He did that so many times, and they charged me my fine, and I'd have to drive for a year without a license, and see them red lights and get all nervous and shit, and I'd just do it over and over. And it was just because I was misunderstood, and the cops were out to get me, and anybody drink if they were married to her, and it just went on and on. The people in AA tolerated me. I'd get up, I'd volunteer and give talks. Go home and tell my wife how many people I saved. I memorized part of the book so I could quote to you, so you'd think I was really this shit. Everybody in AA knew what I was doing, but they tolerated me. And one time she said to me, I had a big book, somebody giving it to me. She said, well, if you're going to meetings every week and sometimes twice a week and doing what you're supposed to do, why do you keep drinking? I said, it don't take till you memorize that book. And she was so dumb she believed me. Of course, about a year later, she said, you ain't trying to memorize that book. But I kept getting a little of what you had to say, getting resentments, a lot of you who wouldn't leave me alone. Bud Blumenthal, he's dead now, and God love him, he had about 16 years. He was always saying AA sayings to me. God, I resented him. One time I was at a meeting whining and sniveling. He said, you're looking for sympathy, and it's between shit and syphilis in the dictionary. Ha, ha, ha. Couldn't stand people like him, and they were all over. One time I decided to get sober. He belonged to the Sugar House group. It's a men's group in Salt Lake. Very macho men. Ha ha, you had to have a deep voice to even get in. And God, them guys would get up. You want potatoes? Get a hoe, I don't want no goddamn potato. I'll go to Safeway, but I sentenced myself there because I hated them so bad, but that was the only place I remembered this stuff. And they wouldn't let you talk. You had to have 6 months sobriety to talk. And I thought, I'm going to get 6 months sobriety just to show these bastards. And I can talk. And I did. I got 6 months. And I also learned a lot about the program. I'd go to other meetings where they'd love me, but I kept my commitment to that one. I went there 2 years and 7 months. I'll tell you what happened in that 2 years and 7 months. I had 3 kids. 3 kids. My daughter, my oldest girl, worked for me in my real estate office. One day I found out she had embezzled $70,000 from me and my partner. That'll get you drunk. About a month after that, she told me she was pregnant and didn't want to marry the guy she was pregnant by. Not long after that, my son, my hero son, played football and wrestled and all that, came to me and said, Jolene's pregnant, Dad. Oh, well, that's cool. You can marry her. You only girl you've ever dated. Okay, we'll get married. So I arranged this big church wedding. I raised them kids as Catholics just to show them what misery was. I didn't go. Really, I had to choose between that and Mormonism, and I chose Catholicism. I thought, which is worse? Who knows? I arranged this big church wedding and paid for it and all. The night before he was to get married, he come up to me and said, "Dad, I don't want to get married." And I said, "Are you out of your mind?" And he says, "I don't want to marry Jolene." I said, "Hey, I've arranged this church wedding and paid for all this shit, and we've got all these people coming." And he says, "But I don't want to marry Jolene. I want to marry Cindy." And I said, "You can't marry Cindy. Jolene's pregnant. And I don't even know who Cindy is." He said, "Well, Cindy's pregnant too." I was still in charge. We had a wedding the next morning. It lasted 3 weeks. Then he left her and took up with Cindy, and they've been together ever since, 17, 18 years? He knew. But I was still in charge. And then my youngest came along. And don't worry about Bill. He and I are friends. He knows who I was and who I am. Bill's not our token black. He's actually white. He's my oldest boy. He come up to me, and my youngest, my baby, a model, a ZCMI model, came up to me and said, "Dad, I'm going to move out." That's good, you know. Last kid, I was so sick of kids. You know, they weren't leaving on good terms, but they were leaving. And she said, "I'm going to move in with a guy." It's 1980, whatever. Go ahead. "I'm going to have his baby." Big surprise, you know. He's black. That's when the shit hit the fan. He's black. So I went and got me a bottle of whiskey and got out my 30-30 and went looking for him, and I ought to killed him. It's the only time I've ever heard of a good drunk. I got so goddamn drunk that I forgot why I got drunk. And I came out of a blackout 4 months later, and I was sick. Apparently I'd been drunk and paying this guy I used to know in AA to bring me whiskey and food and cigarettes, and I'd been totally drunk for 4 months. And I was too sick to want to kill him anymore, you know. God helped me out on that one. I had one good drunk in my life, and that was it. I didn't have to go to the Sugar House bunch anymore because they didn't like you there if you drank. So, you know, that was good. Totally separated from my kids for about 3 years. All of them. I was glad. Sick of them little bastards and all their bullshit. You don't think they were raised in a dysfunctional family, and that might have had something to do with it. I was wonderful. They each got a car when they were 16. My oldest girl called me one Father's Day and said, "I just want to tell you you're a fucking asshole," and hung the phone up. That was my Father's Day gift. My only contact with her for 3 years. I kept going to AA. AA won't let you go. After a few of them people know your phone number and find out you're sick, they keep calling you and coming over and bugging your ass. And they kept doing that. And so I'd go to a meeting just to shut them up. And I divorced that goddamn. We've been married 24 years, and she wouldn't go to Al-Anon. And when I sobered up, you know, just got a few months sobriety, I knew I didn't like her. And so I divorced her. That's when the kids quit talking to me, that's right. I got that backwards. It wasn't when they moved out, it's when I divorced their mother. She was with you all them years you were drunk and you just dumped her. She took everything I had but my clothes and one car, but I dumped her. And I had a lot of real estate, you know. I knew how to make money, I just didn't know how to live. And I met one of you, good looking little girl, and I thought, well, I'll marry her because if I have to get drunk or something, she'll understand. And so I married her. I adopted her boy. She had a boy. He was a mess, being raised by her. She'd been sober 2 years, but she was a low-bottom drunk like me. But she had 2 years sobriety. And when I got drunk, she didn't understand. Not for shit. she called up her sponsor, and her sponsor said, throw him out. Did that. Anyhow, that lasted a year and a half. And then I became a bachelor. I was happy being a bachelor. I could drink, nobody bitched. You know how bad I was, though, how conditioned? I used to hide whiskey in my house, and I lived there alone in my apartment. Pour a glass and put it back under the counter, you know. I did that for a couple of years and went over to the private clubs and all and drank a business into the ground. I'd opened another business and drank it into the ground. One day I was sick enough to go to the VA hospital. And I went in there. And I'd been there in this drug and alcohol treatment program. I didn't want to go in the drug one because I'm no drug addict, them low-life scums, you know. But they made me. That's the only place they had a bed. And I'd been there long enough to where I could go to the cafeteria and eat and stuff like that. You know, they got tunnels up the VA hospital if you haven't been there, so you don't get lost, you know. You go down the tunnel right through there and you'll be in the cafeteria. Go over there and you'll be an X-ray, you know. I was going through that tunnel and I saw a couple of people I knew in AA, named Kathy Kahili and Brent D, and a girl I'd never met. And I said to Kathy, what are you doing? And they were smuggling Brent out to an AA meeting. He was in there for a bad back or one of his terminal diseases. He gets a lot of them. But, and he's been sober 15 years. You know what I thought about? Now, mind you, women cause most of my trouble in my life. You've heard that. All I could think about was, who is that blonde, that little girl there with the freckles with Kathy? That's all I could think about. And it was her. And I knew I was getting well because girls were looking good again. I got out and I found out who she was. And she was sicker than I ever been in my life. You talk about being in and out of the program and being crazy, and it was her. And I couldn't get enough of her. You know, and we got to hanging out together. She used me for a long time. She just let me come around when she needed some cigarettes or money or something. She'd go, and I let her. Something told me that she was the one, but I don't know what it was. And finally we moved in together, and when she wasn't running off, I was kicking her out. We did that for years. I'm not talking about a week or a month. We did that for years. And she'd been living with Donna Maryland. It turned out they brought her from Nebraska. And when she'd run off, she'd go out there, stay. And they'd let her. And I didn't like them two anymore. God, I think if they'd mind their own goddamn business, she'd have to stay here and face the world, you know. Threaten them on the phone and shit like that, but Donna Maryland didn't ever tell her no. I don't know if they've ever told anybody no. But we did that for a long time. One day she come to my apartment and said, I want you to give me some money, loan me some money to get my own apartment. And I said no. And I lived in this U-shaped apartment complex up on the second floor. And she left all mad and screaming and shit. Went downstairs and I was out on the balcony and she's out there in the middle of that. Kids playing and, you know, all the neighbors and shit. You're a low-life motherfucker, she's hollering. And I'm, God, you know, I live here, you know, don't. Shit. Thought she was crazy. I was glad she left that day. And that night I went to St. Benedict's. They had a meeting there at that treatment center. I used to go to it every Wednesday and Friday. And I never thought she'd be there because she was being so crazy and stupid. And there she was. And she'd come up to me. She'd probably been clean about 15 minutes, and I'd been sober about a week, and says, if you're ever going to marry me, do it now. Or if it ain't done tomorrow, we ain't going to do it. And I went to Elk